Adam here from TSN. It is probably the best time of all, a few days after the completion. I'm not going to say end because I'm still eating my pancakes every day, is shredded on pancakes. Now, there may be some of you listening that have been following and some that not. So I'm just going to recap as far as shredded on pancakes. It all come about last year when I competed in my first bodybuilding competition, and obviously with a flexible dieting approach, and I love making my own pancakes every morning and continue to do so right up until stage. And the hashtag shredded on pancakes came as a result of that. So lean that I was able to compete in a bodybuilding or a couple of bodybuilding contests and eat my pancakes every day. So basically the moral of that is, or what the definition of shredded on pancakes actually is being able to be structured about the way that you do things, find a sustainable approach and get the results you're after, because unfortunately you don't want to end up another statistic. And by that I mean is the majority of people often choose a drastic approach, which in most cases will have some sort of drastic backlash, AKA weight regain, or it's just not sustainable in general. And it was the most incredible experience of my life, obviously, going through taking the body to that extreme. And I obviously, after the completion of that, tried to return to some level of normality in my life. Obviously my personality, it's all or nothing, so no such thing as normal or balance. Come towards the end of the year, training was going well. I was very happy as far as where things were at. Unfortunately in January, I think it was around the 12th of January, I come off a scooter, dislocated my ankle, full dislocation and 3 fractures in my leg. And coming from the background of obviously everything in business and life is related to being able-bodied for not only myself but my team. And yeah, it was a pretty hard thing to swallow when it happened as well, especially being on holidays. You know, it's supposed to be a time of great experiences, and yeah, it's just one of those unfortunate things. I just got the short end of the straw that day. And you know, moving forward from that, unfortunately, yeah, they did need to fully operate, stick a pin in my foot or my ankle, and I was 6 weeks non-weight bearing, etc., etc. Learned how to walk in March, and I even went on one leg. I used it as a bit of a challenge. I turned adversity into nothing but positives, taking many things mentally, physically, everything out of the journey itself. But come March, when I was able to walk again, got the green light, so that was probably one of the best days of my life, I thought I got to really just sort of have something that I've got a definitive date. I've got a weight goal and aim for something that I can really knuckle down, but I'm not cutting life out as a whole. And I thought of the whole shredded on pancakes scenario, and I'm like, well, that sort of opens up a great example for 99.99% of people who want to get fit or get the results that they want, whilst being able to, you know, live life and enjoy life in the process within reason. Again, this definition can be varied somewhat, unfortunately. And this is where the whole shredded on pancakes, and I thought, okay, good 3 months will give me you know, plenty of time. I only had 4 kilos to lose, but mind you, my leg was probably half the size of what it is now. So I had plenty of growing to do, and it didn't take long to make its way back, which I'm very fortunate about. But what I did was I set up 12 weeks and I had 3 non-negotiables. Now, you've also got to understand, food was structured, training was structured, everything was to a T, but I also implemented the 3 non-negotiables. These were things that I thoroughly enjoyed as far as life as a whole, and I thought by leaving them in, it would make me feel as though I am not missing out on anything. It's going to give everything a little bit more longevity, and I'll be less likely to go off the rails as such. So non-negotiable number 1 was I get to eat pancakes every day. Now I still do. That was easy. So I normally documented it, took a photo, put it up on my Instagram stories, and I still do now. So it's just part of what I do. I love pancakes, and that's just how it is. So for those who know me, know I'm totally obsessed. Non-negotiable number 2 was every week I had to go and find somewhere to eat out. It's a tough gig, isn't it? And you know, that was great, but I will be honest, by the end of the 12 weeks, I was sick of trying to find places to eat out, because sometimes I actually just wanted to try and do some homemade pizzas or do something from home. But you know, it's the same thing. If you cut something out like that altogether, by the time that you actually have the opportunity to eat out, that's where all the binging and everything occurs. So for me, one, it was something to look forward to, provided I really dialed in right throughout the week, or the 6 days a week, and I had that sort of one meal and dessert, which same thing, it spread out some weeks. I pushed the boundaries. And non-negotiable number 3 was at least 6 beers every weekend. I love beer, and it's just nice to enjoy a few with friends, or just after a big week and just chill out and have a few beers. It's nice. So I thought also by implementing non-negotiable number 3, having at least 6 beers every weekend, it would also make me feel like I'm not caged or in some sort of unreasonable dieting strategy. So I was 91.6 kilos. Within 6 weeks, I got down to 87.6 kilos. And that first 6 weeks was very strict, as far as I only ate out once a week. I only had a maximum ever of 6 beers. And of course, I always ate my pancakes every day. So that first 6 weeks, I was like, okay, well, that's great, because that shows my clients, both hands-on and my online clients, that if you are careful and strategic about the way that you implement your non-negotiables, you can still get quality results, feel sane, find that it's an approach that you can see yourself doing indefinitely, and away you go. So obviously this will prevent any post-diet weight regain, sanity purposes on a physiological and psychological level. It's just a great approach. So after that first 6 weeks when I did that, obviously it was time to look at bringing my calories up, but I didn't actually make too many drastic changes. It was more just, you know, doing all the little things that I would normally do in a certain dieting phase, as far as proper tracking of food, a little bit extra cardio, not much at all. I haven't found that I've ever normally needed to do that unless I'm really behind. So all in all, I think, especially that first 6 weeks, just sticking to it to a T with those non-negotiables, it was a great success, and I was very, very happy with the overall outcome. Me being me, 6 weeks to go, I've already set out to achieve what I wanted to, with the whole point across choosing a sustainable strategy of dieting, so that there is no actual finish line. It's just the goals change, as I say. So I thought to myself, well, I'm down to my goal weight. I was actually below my goal weight, being 88 kilos. I was 87.6. Thought, okay, there are a few events and things coming up, and I've got a few things during the week, some weeks. How far can I push the boundaries in maintenance? Now, maintenance for me probably be a 1 to 2 kilo fluctuation. Obviously jumping on the scales on a Monday as compared to Friday. Yeah, there's a good couple of kilos difference. But in the past, there's been a lot more variance than that. But for that whole 6-week period, not only did I stick to my non-negotiables, but I really pushed the boundaries. There was some weeks there that I actually ate out a few times a week. I had events on which involved alcoholic beverages more than once a week. And, you know, one pre-dinner dessert ended up with dessert, entree, dinner, dessert. Like I really found where that edge was, where it was too far. I really pushed it to the brink to see what I was capable of doing for maintenance. But you've also got to understand that every single thing during the week was absolutely bang on until I had my window, whether it be during the week on those multiple occasions or on the weekend. The thing is, as well as that psychologically, I had already been prepared to say to myself, am I willing to understand that possibly for this next 6 weeks, there probably won't be any sort of progress as far as aesthetically. And for me, I was prepared for that. So as they always say, it's, you know, 2 steps forward and 1 7/8 back, or 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. That's what it was like, but I was willing to do that for the sake of, 1, proving a point, but 2 is also just teaching me that, okay, well, if you're really gonna push the levels as far as what you're going to do with food and alcohol and calories in those little time frames, be prepared to probably go backwards 4 or 5 days until you get back to where you were the week before. So that's probably, to relay that across to you guys, is do the crime, do the time. If you're thinking that it's a 90-10 rule or whatever it may be, if that 10% you go hard, be prepared to go back quite a considerable amount of days before you even are even close to progressing. And this is the problem a lot of people have when they're taking out or carrying out any sort of health and fitness program. They're great 90% of the time, but 10% of the time they're letting loose. And it doesn't work that way, especially when you are on low food. So all in all, there's some really great outcomes that I managed to really get out of this whole experience. Is 1, if you're relatively structured, you don't eat like an asshole, as they say. You know, you stick it to a meal, you stick to your allocated drinks, and you bank accordingly. I teach all my clients how to calorie bank. Again, it's something that works for me, which I like to pass on and educate for them. And if you do that accordingly, within the guidelines, you can certainly progress along the way. And that's so important too, because you're not cutting things out drastically. It's like when people cut out food groups drastically or just take some sort of drastic measure. It just isn't going to happen as far as being able to maintain an approach, an eating and training approach like that indefinitely. That's what you need to look at when you're choosing an appropriate option for your health and fitness goals. Is, can I see myself carrying out that sort of approach for the rest of my life? Because you don't want to think that after 3 months it all finishes, because after 3 months and it all finishes and you get to your goal, that's when the real hard stuff happens, because all the things that you've implemented right the way through to get you to where you want to be start falling apart. And that's when shit hits the fan. And before you know it, a few weeks weight gain creeps up on you very, very, very quickly. So the first 6 weeks, like I explained, when I was within those guidelines and structured, that's probably the perfect example of what I would like to pass on to you guys as far as a sustainable approach. Otherwise, if you just go all in and just cut life out as a whole, be prepared for some backlash there. And the thing is getting the weight off or getting the results you're after is one thing. Maintaining is a whole different world and level of respect. So the problem is obviously going back to the statistics. I think that statistics show that about 95% of people fail within a particular dieting period, and 2/3 of those people that actually diet put on more weight than when they first started. And this is all to do with not choosing sustainable measures for a sustainable outcome. Go all in on a drastic measure, be prepared for what could potentially happen. Again, not to all, but what could potentially happen. So in summary, 1, choosing that appropriate approach for that first 6 weeks is probably the ideal method of all, because if it not be 6 weeks, you might need 12, 18 weeks, or whatever it may be. There are so many different options. Everyone is at a different starting point, metabolically, dieting history. We won't even go into that because that's a whole different topic altogether. Number 2 is, if you do the crime, do the time. So if you're gonna go out and binge and eat like an asshole and really push the boundaries, don't be prepared to progress much. And I'm talking even in a 4-hour window, the amount of food and alcohol and calories you can put away in a very short period of time will undo all the hard yards, especially for those who are on low food. You've also got to understand, I'm on higher food than probably 95% of people who are dieting. I didn't even finish dieting at all on low food. Again, this is years of setup for me to put myself in a metabolically healthy position. So, what next as far as what I want to do with this whole experience is, now I don't have to have 6 beers every weekend. If I choose to have an alcoholic beverage, I've got a particular beer that's low in calories and I can have a few of those on the weekend. I'm not going to say I can't have it, because if I can't have it, it'll give me more of an urge to consume it, and when I do, it's all or nothing sort of thing. So I'd rather be able to have a few if I feel like it. If I don't on the weekends, well, I won't. The other is cutting eating out altogether for the time being. I think 12 weeks of that anyway was enough. So I'm going to start getting creative and making some decent meals at home. And honestly, the amount of food volume that you can consume when you're making your own meals at home is far greater than eating something out, which it's a hit and miss as far as what could potentially be in that meal. So I'm going to start doing that, because for one, I want to be able to create more recipes and eat at home ideas for my clients as well. And pancakes are just going to be, they're every bit a part of me, so they're not going to stop as well. But I'm just going to dial things in a little bit further, because I really think that I've got quite a bit to show for if I pull my finger out. As in, what I'm saying is that cut the weekends out as far as pushing the boundaries and everything for the last 6 weeks. I managed to pretty much maintain over the 6-week period pushing the boundaries, which really makes me think, okay, well, if I just pulled everything back in, again, didn't do anything drastic, still allowed, if I wanted to, 1, have some beers, or 2, eat out. If I ate out, it would be something very simple, but at least it allows me that experience. And I'd probably cut dessert out altogether, because that's when it can really go south as far as calorie blowouts as well. So all in all, this experience for the 12 weeks with Shredded on Pancakes and those non-negotiables, it was a very valuable experience and some valuable lessons that I took away from it. Going into the next phase now. So I've sort of given myself 8 weeks to just pull my head in that little bit further. Again, we'd all be lying saying we don't want to look, you know, it's not about looking good. Of course, I want to be in peak. I want to look good for when it starts warming up as well. And not only that, is that leading by example is the only way to lead. And I'd never want my clients or anyone I'm advising whether it be dietary supplements, training, whatever it may be. I never want them to second guess my work ethic when it comes to health and fitness. I believe, as we see back there, you know, I've got to be a walking billboard for my brand. So that's every bit of motivation for me, but more importantly, it is so important to set definitive goals, short and long term, because that means you are then training with a purpose. So it might be an event or whatever it may be. Setting some definitive goals and timelines, I believe, is absolutely paramount. Otherwise, you just you feel lost. And that was why, following the 12 weeks, I sort of already had a game plan as far as what I wanted to strategize and implement following the 12-week stint of Shredded on Pancakes. So I think through adversity, breaking my leg earlier in the year, nothing but great things have come of it, and probably as well some really good things as far as going down the lines of mobility and having understanding of biomechanics and how the body functions, and having a really big goal is being able to train pain-free, which I am now, touch wood. So I'd say nothing but great things have come from a pretty shitty situation starting the year, and I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing what levels of conditioning I can push with, you know, no intention of jumping up on stage or anything like that. It's more sort of just trying to maintain an all year round conditioned physique. And obviously in years to come, I've got some long-term goals there, but let's see what we can do. All in all, I think a great starting point as far as using myself as a guinea pig. I tried many different strategies along the way with Shredded on Pancakes, and all in all came out the other side a better person for it. So I hope that sort of gives you a little bit of a scope as far as what the purpose was, taking myself through something like that. And I believe it's something every one of you can relate to in regards to choosing something that you don't feel like you're pretty much caged and have got so many of these restrictions that you can and can't do this and this. You know, social outings and food and alcohol, I mean, in the end of the day, you can't prevent the inevitable. And more often than not, if people cut that out altogether, that's when shit hits the fan, when it gets reintroduced again, and hence weight regain and the proven statistics as far as why people aren't able to find a sustainable solution, because they don't choose a sustainable approach. Over and out, guys. There's Shredded on Pancakes, but long live the Shredded on Pancake legacy, and I'll look forward to sharing my journey over the next 8 weeks, pulling my finger out.